Hello my friends, Lynn's here from Lynn's Handmade Designs. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Guess what we're making today? We're making a big bag. The biggest bag I've ever made personally, and the biggest pattern I've ever released. Introducing the Stephan Sport Duffel. Guys, I love this bag. Way more than I thought I would, honestly. I originally designed it for my son's martial arts equipment and stuff, and I never intended to release it as a pattern. It's so big, I didn't want to write for interfacing and line it and all those things. And the more that I made it, I was like, I do love this. And I think everybody else would love it too, so I'm gonna move forward with it. I did line it, but I did not write for interfacing because we want to use good quality outdoor type materials. So I'm writing for utility fabrics. What does that mean? That means we're wanting materials that are like canvas, waxed canvas, waterproof canvas, water resistant canvas, bonded poly, nylons, leather, vinyl, ripstops, those types of materials. And those ones typically come 56 to 60 inches wide on a bolt, unless it's like a custom print. But again, the material list is going off of materials that are that wide. I've made it in almost all of the materials, especially for the exterior. My absolute favorite interior is these bonded polys or the hexagon grid ripstop. It's 300 denier waterproof nylon, and because of the grid pattern on it, it makes it really tear resistant. It's not shape shifty, barely frays. It's amazing to work with. So if you've had a bad experience in the past using ripstop, just as I have, use that stuff. It's amazing, and you're gonna get a nice result in your duffel bag. I would stay away from those really lightweight, almost see-through ripstop and that are smooth, because when you cut it, you try to cut a square and suddenly it's a rhombus and it's fraying like crazy. It's slippery. It is very, very difficult to work with, and it's not great for this pattern. If you've had that bad experience, rest assured, using the gridded stuff, it will be a much more pleasant experience and you're gonna love the finish for your bag. Let's talk about features. This is a nice size. It's 22 inches wide, 10 inches tall by 10 inches deep, so it will fit in most overhead compartments easily. Especially being a soft structured bag, there's usually no problem fitting in there. In fact, my sister just came to visit me and she used this as her carry-on, and she said she flew on the smallest plane she's ever been on, and the whole overhead bins were much smaller than she's used to, and this fit just fine. In fact, her son's standard hard roller didn't fit and ended up needing to be checked. It is a great size as is. Unfortunately, I'm only including the one size. For this pattern, you're gonna wanna measure twice, cut once. Measuring accurately, cutting accurately, it's gonna be real important for the end result of your bag, that you're spot on. We will do some few checkpoints throughout to make sure we're on the right track, and then I'll give you tips and tricks on how to get back on track if you're suddenly something's amiss. You can see here I have different bags. I've tried all of the materials. This one in particular is a bonded poly nylon exterior as well as for the interior, and it sews up beautifully. This one is waterproof canvas, so it has that plasticky backside, and then it also has that hexagon grid lining that I love so much. So good, guys. I'm telling you, it is so good. There's that. I've also tried it in leather. This was quite the undertaking. I made this for my husband for Christmas, and it's probably one of my proudest makes. He loves it. It's amazing. I do not recommend you jumping right into leather, even if you are comfortable working with leather. Make one as written first, because there are some modifications to do this, but just wanted to let you know that all of the materials I've tried have worked out. I also did waxed canvas. So beautiful. One of my favorite features that I have not covered yet is this bad boy. Do you see that? Do you see that giant zipper along the back? What is that, you ask? It's a shoe pocket. Yes, it's a shoe pocket. Someone asked me if this duffel bag, when I was in the prototyping phase, had a shoe pocket, and I was like, no, it has no shoe pocket. I'm not gonna mess with these end panels and redesign it, because prototyping a bag this size is a lot of work. So then I was just thinking, I was like, well, why couldn't we just put it back here, make it a straight zipper versus a curved zipper? It sounds like it would be way easier. And guess what, guys? It is. It is. As I mentioned before, on the inside, you have two zippers now. You have a zipper on the back wall here and a zipper on the back wall here. So all you have to do is unzip that, and inside is a pocket. This is where that ripstop comes in because it's nice and lightweight and it fits in between the walls of these main bodies. Once you pull out your little pocket here, you unzip this here, you just add some shoes. So you slide those in there, just like that, and then you can see it's now separated from the rest of your stuff. You don't have a need for a shoe pocket. Another neat idea, we were just traveling back to Illinois over the holidays and my husband brought his leather duffel. Loved it. I love seeing him use it and love it. He said, you know, I don't need the shoe pocket. I just packed the one shoes, which I'm wearing. He used it for his dirty laundry. And I was like, that is brilliant. Usually I'll bring like a plastic bag or something because you want it separate from your clean stuff. Just shoved it in his shoe pocket. Yes, it even fits a basketball. I'm kidding. It fits a full-size basketball, I promise. It is a sports duffel after all. It fits. If you're like, I don't have a need for a shoe pocket. I don't mind my stuff being in the same thing. I don't really care. This is optional. You don't have to include it in your bag. It really doesn't add a whole lot of extra steps, but it is just as easy to omit it if you'd like. When it's not in use, you just go ahead and fold it back up in between the main body liner and exterior like I mentioned before. So it can be tucked out of the way if you choose to never use it. Telling you, I love this bag. Side mention, if you saw this little grab handle, just because I'm extra, I had to add it. It's not essential. You can certainly leave a handle off. Not included in the pattern. I did do a video tutorial and I'll link that in the description box below. So if you want to make your own and be extra like me, you can. Also, did you know we have a free tutorial on YouTube as well for this shoulder strap pad? This we made for our H2O to go because those get so heavy, but it makes a great pad here for your duffel bag as well. So click those links below if you want to add these little freebies to your bag. You're more than welcome to. Come back here. I don't know where you're going. Go ahead and grab your supplies and meet me right back here because that's going to take you the longest, honestly. It's choosing the materials that you want and then making sure you got enough of the webbing and the zipper pulls and such. But meet me right back here. We're going to sew one together. Brace yourselves. We are making a duffel, so there are a number of pieces, but I have the little pattern labels that you can print out and attach to each of the pieces to help you stay organized. So let's kind of go through that right now. In my pattern, I do mention how you can cut one piece and assemble it as one to make your D-ring tab and then the grab tab. So that's what I've done here, or you can do them individually. This is the end zipper gusset liner. So you have two of those. End zipper gusset exterior, two of those. And zipper panels. So you're gonna have 4 of these in the lining material, 4 of them in your exterior material. Zipper placket, this is the main opening. So you have 1 of those in your exterior. Zipper placket end piece. We have quite a few of these end panels, you'll notice. I have 2 in the exterior and then 6 in the lining because those end pockets in the bag are lined. Bottom base exterior, the bottom base interior, 1 of each of those. A main body interior, 2 of those. Exterior, 2 of those. This is the optional shoe pocket and I have it in the gridded ripstop. The bottom base stabilizer, front slip and zip pocket. I already added a cute little iron-on patch from the Crafty Reporter. Zipper tabs if you're doing the shoe pocket. 2 in the exterior and 2 in the liner. Then we have the binding strips to complete the material portion. Now we have the zippers to go over. These are for the end zipper pocket. You should have 2 of those, and I have left the pulls off for now because we will add them later. This is the shoe pocket. If you're doing that, I am doing a double pull, so I added a pull from one each end to meet in the center. You could do a single pull, but they're gonna be installed mirrored, and I'll go over that once we get to that step. So go ahead and add your pulls to the shoe pocket one if you are doing that. Then this is the main zipper closure. I've also left the pulls off of that. I'm gonna do this little cute grab handle for that one. So leave the pulls off for now. And then this is the front slip zipper pocket and you'll leave the pull off for this. You'll notice in the instructions we call from anywhere from 5 to 11 zipper pulls, and that will all depend if you wanna do the double zippers on the end pockets and the shoe pocket, or if you're gonna do single pulls. A little quick PSA side note on the zippers before choosing yours. Industry standard used to be that number 5 zippers were all 1¼ inches thick. Now with all these different specialty zippers and manufacturers, they're not standardized. So it's very, very important that when you choose your zipper that you measure it out and you make sure that it is accurate. So this one you can see falls just short of 1¼ inch. So this is going to affect a gusseted bag. So I don't want to use something that's too narrow. This one measures spot on 1¼ inch. This is what we expect. So this is a safe zipper to use. This one, you'll notice when you put it down, it's actually beyond 1¼ inches. It's almost like 1 3/8 inch. Again, when it comes to a gusseted bag, if you have any little small variations in your zipper tape, so maybe I use 2 different color zippers and one's 1 and just shy of 1/4 inch and one is just more than 1¼ inch, you have almost a 1/4 inch discrepancy and you're going to wonder what you did wrong, why your bag's not turning out, and it's because the zipper tapes are not created equal. So don't make that mistake. Double check the width of your zipper, make sure it's exactly 1¼ inches before moving on. We should have 3 different cuts of webbing. This first one is the longest cut, and this will be for the optional crossbody strap if you want to do that. Then you should have 2 shorter cuts. If you are doing the shoe pocket, they will be different lengths. So one will be longer and one will be shorter. If you are not doing the shoe pocket, they should be both the same length and it's the longer cut. If you already know you would never use a crossbody strap on your duffel, then these really are not even needed. But this is where you're going to be attaching the crossbody strap to your bag. You'll need a strap adjuster and 2 1½ inch swivel clasps for that strap. Then we'll need a cut of hook and loop, also known as Velcro. And I grabbed a cute little wove couple tags that I want to add to the bag. Once you've had all your pieces cut out, we will want to add some important landmarks. So on these end panels, you're going to add the center mark along the top, and the 2 sides and the bottom on all exterior pieces, as well as the top, sides, and bottom of all these liner pieces. So I fold them in half, I cut a little notch on that. Then for the main zipper placket that we kept folded in half, I marked the center on this edge. This is the lining main body and the exterior main body, and since I will be doing the shoe pocket, I'm gonna go ahead and pull one to cut into 2 pieces. So this is now gonna be the interior front wall, and for this main body exterior, I'm going to cut this one into 2 pieces. This will now be the front piece. So the piece that gets cut into 2 is considered the back. Per pattern instructions, I now cut these into 2 pieces. So I do want to go ahead and add those center markings once again. So I just fold it in half and I cut an itty bitty notch along the center of that bottom, and then we'll do the same thing to this piece. And then go ahead and repeat with the exterior. Since a lot of the pattern pieces are similar in shape, we don't want these to get lost. Go ahead and clip them together so they stay together until we get to that step. Now let's move on to our grab handles. To prep the grab handles, we're going to sew a section of the center in half. Fold the short ends together and find the center of your webbing, which I've marked with a pin here. And then from the center, we're going to measure 6½ inches on each side and lay some double-sided tape and pinch between that. So I'm going to mark my ruler at the 6½ inch mark here and then lay some double-sided tape. So I'm going to come off the edge a little bit because I don't want to sew through my double-sided tape. I just want it to help me keep the fold, and I will use tape or clips as well. So again, it's 13 inches that we're measuring out here. Okay, now I can go ahead and move those pins and then fold it in half. So if you have a right and a wrong side of a webbing, so it's printed on one side and it's plain on the other side, you're going to fold it wrong sides together. But this webbing does not have a right or a wrong, so I'm just folding either side, it doesn't matter. So where's my end of my tape? Then I'll kind of put a clip there just to designate that it being the end, or you can put a marking that's removable, whatever you prefer. There. We'll repeat this with the other strap, And then we're gonna sew an 1/8 inch from the edge all the way across, back stitching well at the beginning and end. So I did actually mark down there so I know my start and my stop. What I would encourage you to do is to line those up and make sure that the ends are equal, because I don't know what it is, but I've messed this up enough times where I've sewn the center portion wrong to check it before you actually sew it. So don't be like me and just jump right in. Mark your little start and stop point and make sure it's center first. Back stitch well at the beginning and the end. And then we'll singe those with a lighter, but this is what it looks like. Repeat sewing the second handle, and now you have 2. Go ahead and set those aside. Moving on to prepping our main zipper closure. So you have 2 zippers for that. Starting along one of the short ends, we're gonna measure in a 1/2 inch from that top edge, and we're just gonna place a small marking on the outer edges here. Then you can go ahead and separate it a little bit so you have some wiggle room to work with. We're gonna pinch right at that marking, which will cause the zipper teeth to pull to a harsh 90-degree angle off to the side. So then these are aligned just like that, and you're gonna hold that pinch. You can take a pin, straight stitch, and kind of hold that fold this way, and then go to the sewing machine and add a row of stitches there to hold that. Or you can use a lighter to melt it together, which is my preferred method, but I'll show you both. So we're gonna repeat on this side, pinching at that marking, pulls it the fold to the left this time, and now the edges are aligned, just like that. Take my pin and mark it. Should look just like that. I'm gonna do that on both these pieces here. Separate it and pinch, just like that, and then I'm going to do the lighter method for this one. So you can use your fingers to clamp it together or a little clamp. You're just getting it melted a little bit and then pinching them together so that it holds. So you can let go of it and it holds that position. Pinch on the other side, fold it down. Make sure the nylon's starting to melt and then pinch it together. Sometimes I have to run the lighter over it a few times to get it to actually hold it. But there we go. Now we can jump right into the next step. But to show you both ways, I have to go to the sewing machine and do a couple stitches on each side of this. Just try to make sure you move your pin so that it is out of the way of your needle path. And you're only about an 1/8 inch away from the edge. You don't want to be able to see your stitching when you install your zipper. But again, just another method on how to secure these 90-degree turns. My preferred method is flame because it's faster. As I mentioned, we're going to leave the pulls off of these for now, so this is complete. Set it off to the side and go ahead and grab the shoe pocket zippers if you are doing the shoe pocket. Now I'm going to say that a lot throughout this video. Please be sure to use the timestamps in the video description below. It can take you and skip you ahead to parts if the shoe pocket doesn't affect you because you're not making it. So I've already added the pulls to this zipper. Now we're going to add some zipper tabs. So I am using the same color zipper for the interior and exterior, so it doesn't really matter which tabs go to which, but once you add the zipper tabs, that will make it the interior zipper and one will be the exterior zipper. So we're going to go ahead and lay the short end aligned with the short end of each of the zippers and clip them in place just like this. Same thing with this zipper. Go ahead and do a quick double check that you have the correct zipper tabs on the same zipper. There we go. So we're going to sew a 3/8 inch seam allowance on each end, press it open, and top stitch. Now this tip comes from my sister who didn't want to waste 2 pulls on a shoe pocket. So if you are going to do a single pull for this, we want to do them opposite so that the exterior zipper pull is on this side and then the interior zipper pull is also at the same side. So that's important that you do them opposite. So I typically like my zippers opening left to right. So I had fed the zipper pull from the right side over on my exterior zipper, and then I fed it from the left-hand side to the right on my interior zipper. But we're just gonna add those zipper tabs the same exact way. Just, I wanted to make note to you that if you're only doing the single pull, they should be opposite. Using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, I'm gonna sew the zipper tab in place. I like to just loop the other end around and go in a chain stitch here. Now press them open and top stitch. Now we overcut the zipper tabs, so what we want to do is go ahead and fold them end to end and mark the centers along the tape. So I typically just, again, cut a little tiny notch out of the edge. And repeat with the second one. All right, if you guys have been here around long enough, you know I want the strap done first and foremost, because you get the whole bag done and the last thing you want to do is focus on a strap. So that's what we're doing right now. We're gonna follow what I tell you to do. So gonna grab your strap adjuster and you're gonna take one of the loose ends and wrap it around the center bar. So you're gonna up one side, over the other, so it looks like this. And then you're gonna leave enough so that you can do a double fold. Just like that. You can do a row of stitches, 2 rows, you can do an X box, you can do whatever you want just to secure this in place. You can even punch it and add rivets. I'm just gonna do a quick little row of stitches here. All right, so now with that seam towards the right, I'm gonna grab the loose end and make sure that it's straight, there's no twisting, and I'm going to thread one of the swivel clasps with the flat side towards the strap adjuster. So I'm going to drop that all the way down. Then I'm going to take the loose end and come up one side from the bottom, over the bar, down the other side. So this is what's making the strap adjustable at this point. We're going to double check that nothing is looped, so it looks like this. And then on the opposite end is when you thread your second swivel clasp. So I'm going to do another double fold here. Just tuck that under. I have so many different cute woven labels that I add them wherever I can. So I found this one, my stash, kind of goes with the color combination. That's what she said. So I'm just going to tuck that under here in the fold. And then we'll stitch that in place as well. There we go. Set your strap aside for when we're all done. You'll be happy you did that, I promise. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the D-ring / grab tabs. They're all the same, made the same and the same size. So that's why I just did the one strip. Otherwise you can cut 6 different pieces for this step. So what I did off camera was draw a line going down the center length here. And now I'm adding some double-sided tape to that line. go ahead and fold the long edges to the line, pressing into that adhesive. With the double-sided tape toward the center, we're going to be sewing along the edges. We will not be sewing through the double-sided tape, or you are just welcome to use clips if the tape scares you. One of the things that I like to do when I'm sewing with double-sided tape is to try to avoid sewing through it if at all possible, but sometimes there are times where I do sew through it, so I will keep some alcohol wipes handy and wipe down my needle after I've known I've sewn through it to remove any gumming of the needle that might have occurred. So let's go to the sewing machine and sew up the long edges, sewing an 1/8 inch from the folded edge. Now I've already marked them in 2.5 inch increments, and I'm just gonna down to size. All right, so now I got little pieces of double-sided tape that I'm gonna put on the ends here and fold 4 of them in half, just like this. These will be our grab tabs. And then 2 of them, we're gonna add the D-rings to. So this is the seam side that I'm adding the tape to. So I'm going to thread one of the D-rings, straight side along the seam side like that, and then fold it in half and put it into the tape. Repeat with the second one, seam side up, fold and press. So these will be for our bag strap, and then again, these are just grab tabs that will go on our end pockets. You can hold them with clips as well in the folded position if you like. There we go, 4 of these, 2 of these. Next, grab the rectangle that is your front slip and zip pocket, your zipper here, and then a pull. We're gonna leave that off for now. I'm gonna add some 1/8 inch double-sided tape along each top and bottom short edge on the right side. So I am using 1/8 inch for this part because I don't want to sew through it. But this 1/8 inch tape is going to act as my basting stitch for my zipper. Like, you know, when you're just wanting your zipper to stay in place, you baste it. Well, I like to just save a step and not have to stitch that basting stitch and just hold it with tape. So I'm going to separate my zipper tape. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. We want right side face down on top, aligning that edge and pressing that in place. So you can hold this with clips if you prefer. I just like the double-sided tape. And you'll notice I use a lot of it in this pattern and in most of my makes. So take it right side facing down along the opposite edge and press into the adhesive as well. Let's head to the sewing machine. A 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to go ahead and sew the zipper in place. Repeat on the opposite end. Okay, so now finger press the seam to the back and top stitch. Whenever I'm top stitching along a zipper, I like to give a little bit of tension with my nails so that it pulls it nice and taut along the whole way. Now we need to rejoin the zipper teeth together. So we're gonna fold them so that they meet and then add the zipper pull. It doesn't matter which side you thread it on for this first pass because we're just closing the zipper teeth. And I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. So now we're gonna run it off. So now it's closed. And then because this is my feature piece, this is gonna be the bottom front. It's gonna be like this, and I want my zipper opening left to right. I'm gonna feed my zipper from the right over. If you prefer your zipper pulls over here, you're gonna feed it from the left-hand side. And I just pull it to the center so it's kind of out of the way of the edges. And then we're gonna roll this top edge so that it's approximately 1 1/4 inches. And I'm gonna grab my ruler to confirm that. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Nice eyeballing. So then go ahead and clip that to hold that fold, just like this. And now we're gonna top stitch across this, and then you can go ahead and finish this edge and then sew along this edge. Don't do anything with this bottom edge, but we'll close the pocket by top stitching and then sewing up the sides. And I just get as close to the edge as possible. And I do prefer to sew in the same direction, so top to bottom on both sides. So you can either flip the panel over and sew down or put it where it's positioned to the right-hand side so that you don't get any rippling of it going in opposite directions. There you go. Next, we're going to add the grab handles, but I need to get you oriented first. If you are not doing the shoe pocket, this is one piece, then these will look identical. You will have two pieces that look just like this, the longer grab handle and the taller main body. But we are doing the shoe pocket, so this is the shorter handle, this is the back, this is the front. The front is also going to have our slip pocket. The back is not going to have anything. So I'm just going to set this bottom portion that we cut off aside from now because we don't need it at this exact moment. We're going to position the handles in place on both of these pieces, starting with the back. So even if this is normal height, because you're not doing the shoe pocket, we're still starting with the back panel. Start by orienting your grab handle correctly so the folded sewn part is towards the back and the folded smooth edge is up towards the top. Then I'm going to flip it over and add some double-sided tape up the center of this, starting along the bottom edge. Just so that we can hold our straps in place. They don't shift. Okay. So measuring in from one edge, we'll start with the left-hand edge here. We're going to measure in 5 inches. So I'm aligning it with the edge here and along the bottom, and I'm going to flip this over because we want the seam towards the back. Then lay this butted up against that 5-inch mark, align the bottom edges, and butt the edge up to your ruler. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So now make sure it's not flipped or twisted in any way. Line up the bottom edge and butt it up against your ruler. Just like that. And press into that adhesive. And I told you I had so many labels, and I found this one also kind of matching my color scheme. It says cutie patootie. I'm gonna put that right in this little side seam here. Now, we're going to sew up the sides and down the bottom to secure our webbing in place, but we want to sew some X boxes along the top for reinforcement in this area. Measure 1.5 inches down from that top edge and draw a marking. across. Now I am using a silver marking pen, which isn't going to remove from webbing. It's really only for smooth like vinyl and leather, but I do intend to be careful about sewing directly over this line. So then 1.5 inches from that line, draw another one. So it's 1.5 inches from the top and then 1.5 inches X box. So we're going to sew this X shape, but I'm not drawing those lines. I just know to go corner to corner. You can draw it though if you'd like. So do the same thing on this side. 1.5 inches down and then 1.5 inches down from that. Okay. So just as I mentioned, we're going to start along the bottom. We're going to sew up over the one edge, go across, go down, across here, go across. So over the stitches you just did along the top, corner, back down on both sides. All right, once you come to the top of the box line, put your needle down, and on its upswing, before your needle comes out of your material, then you go ahead and pivot. That will help prevent that dreaded skip stitch in the corner. All right, so now we're going to sew across into the opposite corner here. And then we're going to do our best to hit the same stitches going across. Go across to the opposite corner and then back down. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm just going to speed that one up since we've already done it once. Okay, set the back aside. Now let's work on the front. So we're going to do this pocket first. We did mark the center along the bottom here, and we're just going to kind of want to find the center along the bottom here, but you can also measure in from each side to make sure it's centered. And I did add 1/8 inch double-sided tape to the back side here, just like that. Now measuring up 1.5 inches from the bottom, we're going to put this centered on that, just like that, and then press it to hold it in place, just like this. We do have to sew this bottom edge first to attach it to our main body front before we add the grab handle. Go to your sewing machine and just sewing 1/8 inch from the bottom, secure it in place. Optionally, I did have one tester say she skipped this stitching because she wanted a trolley sleeve. I didn't think that this pocket was wide enough for that, but she said hers fit. That is something that you would want to do, and you want to leave this a pass-through for a trolley sleeve. You're welcome to do that. You would still have this zipper pocket for anything flat, but then you would not have the slip pocket because obviously it will be open. But I'm going to go ahead and tack the bottom edge right now. Pocket is now tacked in place, so we're going to repeat the same process we did with the back. Now everything is the same from here on out, except the strap is just a tad longer. We're going to measure out the zipper boxes and sew the zipper boxes the same way. Most of this pattern we are doing all the steps twice. Just a reminder, make sure your strap is not twisted in any way and that the seam side is face down and the fold side is face up. Draw your X boxes and sew. So pretty, it's coming along. Okay, so go ahead and find that bottom piece again and clip it so we keep them together again. And set them aside. Let's prep the interior portion for our shoe pocket. So we've got the main body liner that's been cut into 2 pieces, and then we've got the one with the liner tabs attached. Off camera, I did add some double-sided tape along the bottom edge of the bigger piece. So I'm gonna peel that off. And we are gonna lay our zipper face down, lining the edge. So I'm gonna rotate this so it's easier for me to work with. And hopefully you won't see my head in the camera, but we're gonna lay it face down, matching up the center marking. Now, I mentioned we overcut the zipper tabs, so those are gonna hang off the edge, but it'll be nice to cut them perfectly flush when we're done adding it. So that's why we do that. You hate to run short or it's a little uneven, and then you can see that it's uneven. I'm using the double-sided tape. I'm not going to be stitching through it, but you can hold this with clips. Sew together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Anytime you need to stop, put your needle down in your material, move that zipper out of the way. I just closed my zipper and I'm going to go ahead and finger press this really well. The seam towards the main body here. And top stitch. I just like my zippers open for this step. I'm going to peel that double-sided tape backing off. And you're going to lay it face down on top of the zipper tape, lining up those edges. I find this easier for me to do it this way. All right, so the bottom edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it away and top stitch. I can go ahead and trim off the excess zipper tabs and then verify that this is the starting height as it was in the beginning. We want it the same exact height as the other liner piece. And we mentioned how the zipper was important. It should be spot on, but if it's a little too long, you can trim from the bottom. If it's too short, you're gonna want to seam rip and do a more accurate seam allowance so it is still the proper height. Continuing on with the shoe pocket, we don't actually need this piece for the time being. We do need the two shoe pocket liner pieces, the exterior zipper with the exterior tabs, and then the exterior with that was cut into two pieces. So you notice the shoe pocket has the boxed bottom, so we're gonna go ahead and sew up those boxes. Now, if you've installed a zipper pocket before, this is very similar to this. So don't let the steps scare you. However, don't go on autopilot and just go by memory of how you know to install a zipper pocket, because we're doing with French seam, so there's no raw edges on the inside of the pocket since this is unlined, okay? So just stick with me, you'll get it. To start, there's the wrong side of the material, which is the plasticky backing, and then this is the right side with the little grid pattern on it. We're gonna actually put the boxed corners wrong sides together first, line up this edge, and we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each of these box corners, wrong sides together. I went ahead and clipped them so that they stay oriented correctly, so wrong sides are clipped together on all 4 corners here. And up until this point, we've been doing a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but because we're doing the French seams that will end up taking 1/2 inch, we're gonna start with just a 1/4 inch seam allowance for these. Now go ahead and trim the seam allowance down to an 1/8 inch. Now pop it to the right side and roll the seam to the edge there and hold that with a clip. Do that to all 4 corners. Now we're going to do this same 1/4 inch seam, which will end up being a 1/2 inch that we're taking in on each corner. All right, so just take a peek inside, make sure you don't see any of the raw edges that should be encased in your seam line, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and prep the zipper and installing the shoe liners. So I'm going to take this adhesive backing off. And stick with me here. Remember, this is the exterior of the bag, so you want it opposite of how you did the interior if you're doing a single pull. So if your other pull is going the one way, you have to flip it. This is a double pull, so it's not going to matter. We're going to lay it face down, lining up those center seams. So now that that's in place, I'm going to go ahead and add another strip of double-sided tape along that edge. Okay, so this is just like installing a zipper pocket. However, we always do right sides facing, not in this case. So you want to find the right side of your material, and that's going to be face up. It is not right sides together. Face up, center it on that panel. It'll fall just along your zipper. It won't go onto the tabs at all. It is cut shorter. Okay. So using a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this bottom edge. Even though this doesn't go to the edge, we are starting along the edge of the main body. So go all the way back. Now we're going to go ahead and pull the shoe pocket liner away from the zipper, and then we're going to pull the seams towards the main body. So we don't want to tuck this up under and top stitch through all layers. We don't want to top stitch through this. So go ahead and flip it over, but we need this seam to be pressed towards the back. So we have the webbing in here, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But we're going to be pressing like this. So if you want to take your hammer and hammer this, or just manhandle it with your fingers just like that to get it to bend backwards, we're going to top stitch along the main body, not going through the shoe pocket. So the shoe pocket liner is off to the side. It's not tucked up under the main body. We're just top stitching through the main body and the seam allowance that is tucked to the right. So I did hammer this off camera to get the seam allowance folded under there. So it is bulky. You may want to have like a hump jumper handy when you come up to that to help your needle up and over that spot. So I'm coming up to the added bulk, and I don't have a hump jumper that I could find, so I'm just using a pack of needles to just get my foot even with the bulk, and then it's gonna go flying, so be warned. Put your needle down if you're gonna stop for any reason. Repeat the little hump jumper action. All right, this is what you got. Now we're gonna go ahead and tuck that up here, and I just kind of fold it how it naturally wants to go, and I clip it so it stays up and out of the way so we can install the bottom portion. Now we're going to do the bottom portion, so I'm going to take the paper backing off of this, and we're going to lay it right sides facing on top of our zipper. Line up those center markings. Flip your panel over. I already added some double-sided tape to the back side of this, so go ahead and pull that off. And now, just like we did with the other side, we want the right side facing up. So we lay that along this bottom edge, and you'll notice you're oriented correctly because the wrong sides are facing. This is the inside of the shoe pocket. So a 1/4 inch seam allowance across. this, I'm just gonna go ahead and clip them together so it stays out of the way. Flip your panel over and now press this away. We're gonna top stitch along this bottom edge, not going through the zipper pocket, obviously, because it's going that way. Before we move along to sewing up the pocket liners, go ahead and verify the height is the original height as it should be, just like we did with the lining. Okay, so this is what you're working with right now. It should look like that. So go ahead and match up these seams. You can either nest them where the panel's going in opposite directions, which is my preference, or if you want them going in the same direction, so when they open, it's entirely up to you. I nest them to decrease bulk. So clip those in place just like this, and then put this in place. And then continue clipping the remainder, getting as close to this edge as possible. There will be a small gap there, but it's not a big deal. Get as close as you can. So this seam allowance, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because we're gonna do it the same way we did these inner portions, where we trim it down and then encase it and sew it another 1/4 inch. So try and pinch it, the zipper out of the way, and get as close to as you can there. I kind of just start coming in from the side over here. You just don't want it catch that zipper in your seam. I'm back stitching over these because we're going to trim down our seam allowance, and I don't want this to unravel. Back stitch again. And then I'm just kind of pinching this the best I can out of the way. And I'm going as far as it'll let me without catching my zipper. Back stitch there. So, like I said, there's a small gap here. It's not a problem. Trim our seam allowance down to 1/8 inch. Trim the seam allowance, and this is what it looks like from the back side. So go ahead and flip it over and unzip it. Now you want to pull this to the front side through the zipper. Looking pretty funky right now, trust the process. Roll that seam to the edge, kind of rolling it with our fingers, and clip it like that. Roll it, clip. We're going to go all the way around the perimeter doing this. Let's see what I mean here. These were staggered. Go ahead and keep on clipping the remaining of. Now that the seam has all been rolled and you can actually see the seam there, we're going to sew from the top part here a 1/4 inch around this edge, encasing those seams. Just like from the other side, it's tight to get here. Just kind of come off the edge of it, and I've got the zipper pull here, but I'm coming in from the side. There we go. And then now we'll go ahead and sew around the whole edge. All right, make sure to tuck that bottom edge out of the way as you're coming up. And you're just doing your darndest to get as close as possible, but don't catch the zipper or the bottom in it, your seam. Back stitch. Now, if you needed to pull your shoe pocket out to get some dust and dirt shook out of your bag or wipe it down, then you don't see any of the raw seams here, go ahead and tuck that back inside the zipper. Unzip it and flip it over and pull this out. Go ahead and check the seam that you don't see any fuzzies where your raw edge is popping through. We trimmed it down and we did a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You shouldn't see that, but now this part is finished as well. Go ahead and kind of smooth it and then tuck this either down like this or in like this so that it lays as flat as possible here for the next steps. The main zipper placket, I've got them folded wrong sides together and the center marking is along this fold here. This is the top side, although obviously there's no directional print, it's the same on both, but I'm flipping to the underside so that we can add the hook and loop. So I've grabbed the soft portion of the hook and loop. I do have a piece of double-sided tape on the back side of that, and we're gonna lay it down a 1/4 inch from this edge. So it looks like it's right at that little box mark. So I'll use that as my guide actually. Then you're gonna unfold it and stitch along each long edge of the hook and loop. This bottom edge will be in a seam allowance, so I'm not worried about it, but I am taking my stitching close to the edge just so I don't have to start and stop. Probably a good time to check your bobbin at this point and see if you're getting low and might need to replenish it. Go ahead and flip it so it is right sides up. And we're going to measure from this folded edge 1 inch in and mark along the top edge, just a little marking. This is going to be where our zipper is going to get laid down, so don't take it beyond a 1/4 inch. We just want to be able to see where it goes here. Okay, so now I'm going to take double-sided tape, the 1/8 inch, starting at that marking along both long edges. Go ahead and peel off paper backing on one edge. You're going to take your zipper and you're going to lay it right side face down, lining the top edge with the top edge of this, and the 90-degree turn is going to go right in front of that marking. If this is easier to open it up so you can see a little bit, feel free to do that. The tape is replacing a basting stitch. So if you're not using tape, you're going to want to go ahead and baste this in place to keep the zipper from shifting before the next step. So do that with the other side. Right side, base down. That 90-degree angle is just before that marking. Okay, so now go ahead and fold that so it's right sides together. Grab your clips, line that edge up perfectly, and clip along both long edges. So a 1/4 inch seam allowance going along just each long edge. Do not sew across either short edge. reach your hand inside the hole and turn it right side out. This is a pretty soft, easy to work with material, but if you're using wax canvas or anything thicker, vinyl, you want to get it started like this, and then I'll take something like my mallet here, and I will push the center and then really work it over. If it's vinyl, waterproof canvas, wax canvas, you can also blast it with heat of a hairdryer inside here, and it'll also make it really soft and a lot easier to turn. But for this material, it's pretty simple to just turn right side out. I have to get a screwdriver or something, a pointy tool to get up in here to turn the corners right side out. Do your best to finger press it really well, pulling the zipper out on both sides as well as the underside. A lot of the materials that I'm calling for with this pattern don't respond well to heat, so we're doing a lot of finger pressing. So when we top stitch this, like I mentioned before, I kind of like to give a little tension with my fingernails and pull it away, and this will also help prevent the underside from rolling under. So I'm using my fingernails to pull. I'm trying to keep it nice and even, that tension you're applying. You don't want to pull really hard and then looser the next moment. It will give you a wavy zip. So just make sure to give that even tension as it's feeding through. We're coming up to the end of the zipper, but we're going to take it all the way around and go back down the other side. Remember to leave your needle down and on the upswing, but before it comes out of your material, before you turn and pivot. Feel free to sew along that bottom edge. There's no reason to keep it open, but I'm just going to stop right there. Ordinarily, I would tell you to grab your ruler and measure an inch over, but you can see this is my line right here. It's actually perfect with the check, so I'm not going to do any marking, but you will take your ruler and measure and mark or eyeball, but typically I'm going to the top of this and go across here to add some reinforcement to the Velcro portion here. I drop my needle in right over my top stitch. And back stitch. Next, we'll be working with the zipper placket end and the rough side of the hook and loop. I did add some double-sided tape to the back side as well as some small cuts along the end here. You could cut it a ½ inch shorter if you'd like, or we're just going to fold this edge under a ½ inch on each side, and then it's not a raw, sharp edge there. It's up to you. This is how I've always done it, so this is why I'm going to continue to do it. Fold it under. Just like that. Thus, now it's the same measurement as that piece because we used a ½ inch seam allowance. Take this piece and fold it in half, wrong sides together, hot dog style, so lengthwise. Line up those edges and clip. Now measure a ½ inch in off this folded edge and lay your piece butted up to that ½ inch mark centered along this panel. It's about it ends up being about an inch gap on each end. So either measure it out or eyeball it. Just like this. So let's measure that. 1 inch, 1 inch, we're good. Okay, so go ahead and sew through all layers around the perimeter of this hook and loop. Top stitch along this folded edge and then come 1/8 inch from these edges and baste the layers together. So whatever you've been doing your top stitching at, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, maintain that top stitch length here, but come close to the edges where they're raw. Ordinarily, I am very much the type of person who will use matching thread color so it blends and I don't have to be so precise with my stitching. But for educational purposes and video purposes, I'm trying to do a very contrasting color so you can see my stitches. But ordinarily, I would pick one that matches as best as possible. The main zipper placket in front of you with the Velcro or hook and loop portion to the left, the folded edge of the end zipper placket towards the zipper. So we don't want it this way where you're gonna have a raw edge on the inside of your bag. Make sure that folded edge is this way. Go ahead and line up the hook and loop perfectly on top. And I feel like my head's gonna get in this in order to see it right. Okay, just like that. So you're going to want to take a little piece of tape and tack this portion down on the end placket here, but it should, this completed panel together as one should be the exact width of your main body piece. Voila. For this next part, we're going to attach the main zipper opening to the front main body and the lining. So the pieces you're going to need are the one with the pocket and the one without the zipper attached. I did go ahead and add some double-sided tape along this top edge, so I'm going to go ahead and peel that backing off right now. And remember to keep ourselves oriented correctly like this. Oops, that's upside down. I added some double-sided tape there just to tack that in place on both sides there. So this is what we're working with, just like that. I'm going to remove this double-sided tape here and then lay it right sides facing here. Align those side edges and then the top edge of the zipper and press into the adhesive. Now take the lining and remove the backing here and lay it right sides facing. So the exterior and the lining are now facing, and align that top edge again. So a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Open the panel up and finger press the lining away really well from the zipper. And then finger press this. Ooh, it's looking so pretty. Flip the whole panel over and line up the edges of the main body, liner and exterior. So we want them perfectly aligned, and clip. This is why when we add the shoe pocket zippers and stuff, why it's so important that the exterior and liner are still the same size. So clipping through all layers just like this. We do need to top stitch from the right side, but we are top stitching through the lining this time, unlike those shoe pocket liners. So pull it nice and tight away from the zipper and top stitch along the edge. Trying to make sure I'm pulling tension on both pieces so the lining isn't rolling under. Now while I'm here, I'm gonna baste all layers together, which basically, I'm not adjusting my stitch length. It's just a non-important stitch in my mind when I say baste. So that's why we clip them in place, but we want them tacked as one. Our seam allowance is 3/8 inch, so we want to make sure we stay within that. So 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, but no further out than a 3/8 inch. So you're going to see it when we attach our bottom base and end panels. Here's what we're working with so far. Go ahead and flip it around so we can work with this end of the zipper. Oop, I did put that double-sided tape, but it's come undone, so make sure to stick that in place. So now I have double-sided tape added to the top edge of this, and then this is the top edge, so you want the zipper towards the bottom. We're gonna peel that off and lay it right sides facing along the top edge of the zipper. If you don't want to use double-sided tape, baste the zipper in place so it doesn't shift. You know it. You know how it's going now. There's that. Flip it over and sandwich it. So again, don't put the tape along the zipper edge. That's the bottom. It's going along the top edge. Now we're going to lay these right sides facing. Okay, so you should have linings are facing, and then you flip it over, and exteriors are facing. So 1/4 inch across. So go Go ahead and tuck this nicely up in between the layers. And remember, we want it really flat in here, and pull this back down. So it's going to be tucked in between these layers. So align all the edges and clip. I'm going to continue clipping the edge. Now when we top stitch from the front edge here and then sew around the edge, you don't want to sew across these zipper ends. So you noticed I top stitched, stopped, and then basted them together. We're going to remove the center panel when we add the bottom base. That's why we have not added pulls yet, and this is why we've not sewn over these bottom edges. So top stitch along the side of the pocket and then baste around the edges to secure them as one. So pretty. This is seriously the part of the construction that I get the most giddy because it's starting to come together, and so far it's been like a puzzle. This is my favorite. I just want to take a moment and appreciate it. In the written instructions, this is a checkpoint, so go ahead and verify that this width measurement measures what the pattern says it should be, because that will make a difference when we go to add the end panels in the end. So at this point, if you're falling short of that measurement, you're going to want to take a smaller seam allowance when we add the bottom base. If you're too big on that measurement, you're going to take a bigger seam allowance on that bottom base, or you're going to consider trimming it down. But so far we've done those checkpoints that this should be spot on at this point, and we should be able to move right forward. Now, double checking that you followed my instructions and you didn't sew across this portion of the zipper, go ahead and remove the center portion. Here we go. Now we're going to attach the bottom base to the main body here. So go ahead and I added some double-sided tape so that I can keep the edges aligned. I'm going to orient it this way, so hopefully I can keep my head out of the camera. Line up the edges and clip it. Or not clip. You can clip. Or double-sided tape here. Okay. And go ahead and flip it over. So right sides are facing there. We're going to do the same thing with the lining. Okay. Right sides are facing. Line up the edge. Sew this bottom length a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If it's hard for you to maintain an accurate seam allowance, don't feel bad if you need to draw your 3/8 along this material so that you can sew accurately. Because again, we're doing a gusseted bag, seam allowances are gonna matter. Open up and press the lining away. Flip it over and press the exterior away. Clip the centers and the edges because we want these as one. Just like we did with the main body liners. And then holding them together, top stitch along the bottom base. I'm clipped and I'm holding them and I'm pulling with some tension to get it away from the seam here. We don't want it rolling. We don't want the liner rolling short so it's not aligned with this edge, and we don't want a bubble. So make sure you're holding it nice and tight as you pull away and top stitch. We're top stitching an 1/8 inch away from this because we will be inserting the Peltex stabilizer and it needs to fit in that channel. The ombre thread looks so pretty as a contrast on this purple. see in just a moment why we remove this center panel. So you're going to take this loose end and you're going to fold it across the top and line this long edge up with the opposite edge of the base. I did put some double-sided tape down, but I feel like I'm going to need clips for this step because this is the step we're doing that burrito I mentioned. So only clip through the bottom exterior and then roll this towards the center, and you'll see the liner is popped out on this side. If it was underneath like this, this is where you're not going to want to clip it. So that's why it's free flowing. Flip it out and then fold this over and clip in place. I have some double-sided tape on this piece though, just to help things. So this is what you should have right now. Everything's tucked inside like a burrito. Just like before, this is a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Carefully reach inside and take your time, but pull the inner portion out. This is a pretty lightweight material. I am going to go slow and pull it out, but if you're using wax canvas, waterproof canvas, vinyl, this is the part you're going to want to hit it with some heat to make it easier to turn. Go. This is what you should be working with. This part's a little annoying because it's attached. So when we top stitch this bottom, you're going to top stitch from this side and let this be towards you so that you can move it out of the way as you're top stitching. If you start opposite, you're going to have this in the way the entire time and you're going to regret your life choices. Go ahead and pull it nice and smooth and tight. So I kind of fold this here so I can grab it and pull. Grab your Peltex and do a rough check that it fits in between your stitches on the top, and if you're good to go, it should be good to go. Go ahead and insert it in through one of the openings along the edge and slide it in. The Peltex was cut shorter, so you want to position it inside so that there are 1/2 inch gaps on each edge. So here's a 1/2 inch gap, and then there's a 1/2 inch gap. So just make sure you have it seated so there's no bubbling or rippling in there. And then you can go ahead and just baste it across to seal it inside. Just flipped the panel, so now the exterior is on the outside again. And we're gonna reattach this main panel. So go ahead and align the Velcro again up top. And then add the zipper pulls. In the video tutorial to add this, I show you how to add it before like this, or you can actually add it at the end of your bag if you prefer and you change your mind, or I really like that, I want it, I don't have the supplies. I do show you how to do it both ways. Now that you have the zipper pulls back on, go ahead and sew across these bottom edges to tack it so that it doesn't separate in the next steps. Take your binding strip and turn it so that the wrong side is facing you and fold the top edge 3/8 inch to the wrong side, just like this. Lay it right sides facing along the bottom edge of the interior. So the exterior is still face out. I've just got it tucked out of the way, and stitch it all the way in the loop. So I'm going to tack it a few stitches here in place. And then I'm going to hold the edge all the way around and sew 1/4 inch from the edge in the round. Once we get back to the starting point, we're going to go just maybe about 1 inch beyond it and backstitch. Then you can trim off this remaining excess. We're going to do the same thing on the other side with the other binding strip. Binding is on both ends, but before we move on to the end panel construction, we need to add the 4 landmarks. So take the bottom base ends here and line those up and mark this. I do a little notch. You can do pins, whatever you choose to mark your centers with. Repeat on this side, line up that seam and clip the notch. Do the same thing over here with the zipper placket. Line up the zippers and then mark the center. Flip it around. Line up the seam and snip. Go ahead and lay those markings we just added along the top and the bottom right here. Slide your fingers out to the side and mark the side here. Line up that center marking again. Slide out to the side and clip. Center markings. Alrighty, now time to assemble the end panels. I ran out of one of these materials, and since they're coordinate, I've decided to just use the interior of the end pockets in one print, and then this will be the inside of my bag to match the rest of the inside of the bag. So for this, it's going to be important to pair these wrong sides together so that it does match the inside of my bag on each of these panels. So that will leave 2 left over to line the opposite end of the panel. You can go ahead and baste around the edge 1/8 inch to make these act as one. I personally just add some double-sided tape and stick them together and call it a day. We are on to the final steps, and that's creating the 2 end zipper pockets. So each step that we do from here on out, you're doing twice. I'll give that decision to you if you want to do them simultaneously, which is my preference, because if I'm doing one step, I might as well do it for the other pocket as well. But for your first time creating this bag, you may want to create one end zipper pocket and then move on to the next one. But for teaching purposes, I'm just going to show it to you one time, and we're going to end up with the 2 end panels for the final step. So we have the 2 exterior pieces, 2 lining pieces, the 1 zipper. These are grab tabs, and then the 2 pulls. For now, the pulls are going to stay off, and we're going to go ahead and add our zipper to the exterior piece. And I'm going to lay the zipper right side face down. In the instructions, I don't know if you've made our reina before, but we have you overcut these panels so that we can trim it down. It doesn't really matter for me how careful I try to be so precise, lining up the edges and stuff and using the accurate seam allowances. I still manage to have the ends be a little uneven. So instead of having you guys cut them exactly down to size and then to potentially being short, then I will have you trim it down. Just human error, it comes into play. We don't want to be short. It's way easier to cut down than to cry that we are short. Sew across using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next, we want to top stitch, but we want to finger press these lining and exterior away from the zipper really well. And then what I personally do, we'll clip them together along the edge to prevent the lining from rolling under and not being equal with the purple, because they need to be one on the side. So in order to prevent that, especially with this material that doesn't iron well away from the zipper, I'm gonna clip them. And then as I'm top stitching, I can pull on these edges to pull it away from the zipper tape, and I can pull them together. So it's not like I'm just focusing on the top portion and I'm forgetting about the underlining portion. So now I'm pulling them both together away from the zipper as I top stitch. I just want to make sure I can see the lining as I'm pulling. Now, ideally, when I flip it over, we should not see the lining rolling under here. So they're all nice and even, which is exactly what we want. Now we're going to repeat the same thing with the other panels on this side of the zipper. I'll admit I'm actually pretty impressed with myself that this looks pretty even, but you can still see there's about an 1/8 inch discrepancy. So I would prefer to lop that off so it's perfectly even, just for OCD purposes, but also just so for the accuracy of your project. Go ahead off camera and trim this so it's flush and it's the exact width it's supposed to be, and then also trim off any uneven edges up here so it's the exact height it should be to match the bottom gusset portion. Now that the ends and the side have been cleaned up, I do need to put my zipper pulls on. I am doing that double pull, so I'm going to feed a pull, one on each end to meet in the middle. If you are doing a single pull, you're going to want to be mindful of how you add your panels, because it'll depend on how you add your panels whether your zipper pull will be in the front of your bag or in the back of your bag, or they're staggered. So it's kind of a brain twister if that matters to you. If your pulls are both in the front, pulls are both in the back, or opposite, you have to think about that as you're doing these mirrored pockets on each end. Let's go ahead and grab our grab tabs and line them up with the short raw edges of the end of the panel, and we'll base these in place. Next, I've grabbed the end zipper gusset in the exterior and liner, and we're going to attach it to our zipper panel here. So I added some double-sided tape. I do like how it holds all layers together here better than clips, because even if I try to clip it, I feel like it still shifts. This is my preference. I'm going to do one side at a time. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and do 3/8 inch seam allowance. I didn't really mention it, but its exteriors are together, and you flip it over. Linings are right sides together. We'll go ahead and press the gusset away from the zipper panel on the top and finger press well, and then we'll do the same thing with the lining. We don't want the lining to end up bubbling, and it's much shorter than the other piece. Everything's got to operate as one. So I'm finger pressing that away well, and then I'm holding them away from the zipper panel, and we'll top stitch. I'll go ahead and do the same thing with this other side, but you'll notice the gusset is much shorter. So now you're tugging and it makes it funny shape. So it may feel like you're doing it wrong, but that is how we're doing it. So keeping the right sides together on the exterior, we'll lay it along this end. This is the step where I kind of mean that where the tape helps, because clips can still make this shimmy and shift out of place, especially when there's multiple layers involved. So hold that in place, flip it to the opposite side, and now we want to pull the liner up and over into this adhesive. So right sides of the lining are facing. And it's doing this little funky little S shape inside. That's correct. Go ahead and finger press that away on both sides. So we now have our loop. Finger press both of them away, and now we're top stitch. Just double check you do indeed have a loop, that nothing got twisted accidentally, and this is what it looks like. Remember we said we want everything to kind of act as one, so we're gonna baste the ring together along the edges, holding the liner and the exterior perfectly aligned as we go around. I don't adjust my stitch length, I just do the normal stitch length, but basically I'm just tacking them together. Stay as close to the edge as possible. You don't want to come out beyond 1/4 inch. Our seam allowance will be 3/8 inch, so I'm staying at 1/8, but definitely below 1/4 inch. I'm going to repeat on the other side, but I prefer to go in the same direction. So you can either flip the panel over to go in the same direction or just move it to the opposite side. Because if I go this way, then you can get the shifting of and rippling on your loop, and I would prefer to avoid that. So I always stitch in the same direction going in the circle. So now they act as one. Before we attach this, what I'm now calling, this is now a gusset. We're not going to call it zipper panel and gusset. This is going to be our gusset. We need to add the 4 landmarks. So what we're going to do is line up the side seams first. and slide our hand out to the corner and add our center marking. I do that with a little itty bitty cut. Realign those side seams, slide your hand out to this side and mark this side. Repeat with both sides of the loop. Now go ahead and lay those notches you just cut along the bottom and the top. Slide out to the side, add a marking. Repeat along the other side. Now you should have your 4 landmarks, 1, 2, 3, 4 on both sides of your ring. 1, 2, 3, 4. Grab one of your exterior end panel pieces and the gusset. I personally, depending on the material my exterior is, I like to use double-sided tape. To sense a theme here, I've also used staples. You can use clips. I do want to do a little disclaimer first. I am going to still base the ring in place, even stitching through double-sided tape. So if you know your machine can't handle that, this is where you're not going to want to do double-sided tape. Stick with clips or staples. That's perfectly fine. But I just keep an alcohol wipe handy after I knowingly sew through double-sided tape, and I'll give my needle a rub down so that it's not gummy. First things first, if you have a directional print, make sure that it is correctly oriented. We're going to have the zipper portion up towards the top and that gusset portion down towards the bottom. I'm going to turn my ring inside out. So we're seeing the lining portion. And we're going to take that top center marking that we've just marked, and we're going to lay it along the top center marking on our panel. I'm going to press that into the tape along the straight edge, and I'm going to stop before I get to the corners. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to take this side marking and line it up with the side piece marking here. Press it along the straight edge. Go to the bottom marking along the bottom of the panel. Press that. And the fourth marking along the side. Okay, so you probably noticed already that it looks like the gusset is too short to fit into the corners. It's pulling tight. So this is where we're going to go ahead and snip into our gusset here to help it ease into those curves. So knowing my seam allowance is going to be 3/8 inches. I'm going to do little 1/4 inch snips or less, about a 1/4 inch apart, into my gusset. Yes, I am snipping through the basting stitch, but this is not going to make a difference. So now it'll allow it to ease into that corner. So I kind of just push it. It lets the gusset kind of spread out. Push it into that corner. Make sure you don't have any ripples, but that it's tucked into that corner. Just like that. So now I'm going to do that with the remaining 3 corners. Now make sure that this is oriented correctly. We want the bottom towards us, and this is where we are going to sew a full 3/8 inch seam allowance along this straight edge. So just before it curves, I'm going to sew 3/8 inch away, and then I'll back out and tack the edges down in place because I don't trust the tape to keep this panel in place when I go to add a liner. So I am going to end up sewing through it like I mentioned, but this first stitching I'm not. But we want to make sure it's at our normal 3/8 inch seam on this part. Backstitch at the beginning and end really well. Now that I've got that straight away at the normal seam allowance, I'm going to come all the way out to the edge and just tack the gusset to my end panel. And then I'm coming back to the start, so I'll ease back out to where I began right there and backstitch. So now I can have peace of mind that this gusset isn't going to shift out of place even though I use the double-sided tape. So we can add a lining piece on top. Grab the last end panel liner piece. Remember the other ones we have that are double-sided. That's not the one you want right now. You want the single last remaining liner. So go ahead and take this and lay it face down right on top. We're just going to smush the gusset down out of the way, and we're going to clip at those 4 landmarks on the end panels. Once we have those clips, then we're going to go ahead and clip the remainder of the perimeter. We may have clipped with the lining side up, but we're going to actually flip it over so we can see where our turning hole will be. This was sewn at our normal seam allowance. This is where we're going to leave unstitched for this attaching of the lining so that we can turn it through this bottom. Drop my needle right where I left off at that 3/8 inch line, and then as I'm sewing, I'm pressing with my fingers for push out any pleats out of the way, and then if I can't push it down flat, so I'm sewing over flat area, then I'll unclip and I'll go inside to smooth out any ripples. We don't want to add pleats for this step. So we're using a 3/8 inch seam allowance to attach this, and I'm feeling for any bumps, and I'm going to smooth it out before we get to that section. Feel a pleat there. I don't feel like I can smooth it out just pressing on it, so I put my finger in there and just push the gusset to lay down. So now it's smooth. Keep going. And you should still have this portion unsewn. Go ahead and reach inside and pull it through this hole. If this is waterproof canvas or wax canvas that you're using, you can grab that hair dryer and it will, again, help it turn way easier. As I'm doing this, I'm looking for any accidental pleats that I caught in my stitch, and I'm pulling it away and pulling that gusset out. So it looks good on the inside. Now let's flip it to the exterior and check for any pleats on that panel. So again, I want to pull this out and smooth it with my fingers. Now if you have any thick areas, which would be like here, the gusset here, and you want to hammer it before you go. We're going to top stitch along this. So sometimes it gets a little bulky in here as it's kind of rippling on the inside. You can hammer that, but I'm just smoothing everything out. If your materials can be ironed and you want to iron that, go for it. But we just want to make sure it looks really good before we go to that next step. I think it looks good. So we want to make sure we close this hole. So we're going to add some double-sided tape here and fold that over. So you can see how it naturally wants to fold that way because of how we've already stitched next to it. So I'm going to take my double-sided tape. This is our 3/8 inch line. I'm going to put the tape just on the inside of that. So not towards me, but in towards the panel above the stitching line. Then I'm going to put this strip along there. And now it's going to naturally want to fold the 3/8 inch. I'm going to flip this around so I can see it better. I'm going to grab the fold and press it just beyond the stitching line into the tape. So hopefully right now you would never know there's a hole there. And as we top stitch, we will actually secure that hole shut with our stitching. So just like that. I'm going to pop this so it's inside out again. And now sewing from the exterior, I'm going to sew an 1/8 inch around the perimeter, closing the hole. I'm also using my hand to pull the gusset away from the end panel here. So it gives a nice top stitch on the exterior, but also the lining too. It doesn't roll or cause any puckering. Kind of give this a gentle tug to pull my thread to the lining side. And then I'll knot my threads off on the lining side so I don't backstitch there. Leave some thread tails so you have something to work with. You give that a gentle tug, it forms a loop. You can pull the thread from that side. It looks like a continuous stitch, and you can knot it off on this side. I'm using a bonded thread so I can melt the thread ends to prevent it from unraveling. There you go. Your hole is closed. This end pocket is almost complete. We just have to add the final liner piece. So this is the one that you either basted or used double-sided tape like me. Remember, this is the interior of my bag, so I want that on the outside because that's going to go on the inside of the bag. This is lining is matching this. So just like before, we're going to match those 4 landmarks. I'll continue to clip the straightaway here. As we come to those curves, I am going to need to cut into my gusset just like I did before. So we're just doing those little 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch snips to help it ease in. On this, we're just going to baste that in place. And again, when I say baste, it just means it's not an important stitch and I'm coming 1/8 inch from the edge. So I don't adjust my stitch length, but you certainly can. Go ahead and just kind of fluff it back up because I was manhandling it pretty well here. But after this step, you have a usable pocket. Before you go anywhere, let's go ahead and add the D-ring before we forget. That's an easy thing to forget. So I'm oriented correctly with the zipper along the top. And here's my center marking. We're gonna overhang it just a smidge, like about 1/4 inch, right over that marking. This is just gonna ensure that it will get caught in our seam and our binding. We will trim this off, but we wanna make sure that it's overhung a little bit to start. And I am back stitching over that. I'm doing a normal stitch because this is a high stress point if it's gonna carry the load of the bag. So we do want this nice and secure. But this is the first stitch. It's going to be attached to the bag. That's another stitch. And then it'll be attached with the binding as well. So it should be pretty secure when we're done. If you did both end pockets simultaneously like I did, you should now have 2 usable end pockets. If you did not, then this is the time where you're going to go ahead and repeat everything you did for this one so you have an identical opposite end pocket. This is the ending, guys. We just attach these, sew the binding, and seriously, we're done. But we need this to be with the lining side out. So go ahead and turn your bag wrong side out. And then orient yourself so you know what part of the bag you're looking at. This is the bottom base. This is the top panel. I'm going to start with one end and put the other end to the side. This is the top of my bag where the zipper is. This is the top of my bag where the main zipper closure is. So I'm going to put right sides together. This is going to go inside the bag, top along the top. Fold your D-ring so it's out of the way, and then go ahead and clip in place right at the center marking. You're going to rotate the bag around, find that other center marking, clip. You get the picture. We're going to keep on clipping. This lining kind of telescopes in, and that's how we're gonna sew. We're gonna sew from the inside with the main body against our bed of our machine. And as I'm sewing, I'm just gonna keep turning the bag like this. You're gonna need your left arm to really kind of hold and support the edge of the bag because it's really big. This is definitely gonna give you a bit of an arm workout. Just be prepared for that. But we're gonna start along a flat edge and sew in the round. As you can see, I kind of swapped out to these really strong leather clamps with the grips on them. They're nice and strong. I love these. I'll go ahead and link them in the description box below. Just with, like before, when I was sewing the linings, sandwiching the gusset, I'm still feeling as I sew for any sort of ripple. I don't want to create any pleats. So I'm kind of pushing them flat with my finger if I feel them. Coming up on that D-ring, don't forget to use your hump jumper if you feel you need it to get over that bump. Okay, so at this point you do want to go ahead and turn your bag right side out and check your seams. You want to make sure you're looking to see if you caught any pleats, that you caught all layers, and that it looks good before we attach our binding. Doing a quick look-see, looking around the edge, I'm pulling it nice and tight, and then I do notice that I didn't get as close to this bottom edge as I should have. So I'm going to go back in and come in a little bit tighter because you can see that was where my basting stitch is, which means it must have shifted a little bit out of place, but that does look like that's the only spot. So now I know I'm going to go in and come in a little bit tighter along the bottom and then add my binding. I'm just going to go ahead and trim my seam allowance down so that it's about a 1/4 inch all the way around. And then remember, this was our D-ring tab, so it ensured we got all layers. I'm going to trim it so it's flush with the edge. Now that I've done my best to even up all the edges so they're about a 1/4 inch, go ahead and pull up the binding strip. So I'm going to pull it up here. You can again take a good look around that it looks like you caught all edges, and you should have. Just to double check though, this is the time you'd want to catch any errors if you had it. Go ahead and fold the edge over and then do another double fold, encasing those raw edges, just like this. I kind of start with the 4 center points first. This one, I'm going to just trim the overlap down. I do some bulk there. Fold and fold. And then we'll do the remaining perimeter. I'm going to once again sew from the inside of the bag where the main body is against your machine, and then I grabbed my stiletto so that I could take the sharp end and pull the folded edge over my stitch line and keep my fingers away from the needle. I'm going to sew as close to the folded edge as possible. I had mentioned earlier that I really don't like contrasting stitching a lot of the times because the pressure is so high to have such perfect stitches. But in a situation like this, especially for the binding, I would encourage you to pick a thread color that matches your binding as close as possible. It will also help avoid like drawing your eye to the stitching, and the binding will actually look way better. So I'm going to go ahead and speed it up a little bit. Look, doesn't that look nice? I personally think that was like the easiest binding I've ever added is to these end panels, and I really hope that that was the same for you. And then just keep in mind this is tucked on the inside of your bag. You're not going to see it, but it looks really pretty, especially if you match it to your lining. So now flip the bag to the opposite side and we get to do the same exact thing for the other end panel. Make sure you orient yourself correctly. This is the top of the bag. This is the bottom of the bag. So when you grab your end panel, the top of the panel goes to the top of the bag here. And clip those 4 landmarks, perimeter, and sew. Here we go. We have 2 end panels attached. We are done. Go ahead and turn your bag right side out. Zhuzh it up a little bit. And last but not least, go ahead and grab that bag strap. Hey guys, tell me you are glad you made your strap first. Tell me I'm right. Oh my goodness. How cute is that? You guys, we did it. Is that the biggest bag you've ever made? Because it's definitely the biggest bag I've ever made.